And you're listening to Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM from Shippensburg University. The weather outside is currently 72 degrees and sunny with a high of 72 and the low is 48. Today we are joined by two guests from the Kappa Beta Gamma chapter here on campus. The first one is Syd Cummons, and the second one will be Teirini. So Syd Cummons is the president of the Alpha Lambda chapter of Kappa Beta Gamma sorority here at campus. She served as a chapter secretary last year after getting in the spring of 2023 semester, and she is the president this year, like I said. She's majoring in early childhood education for the pre-K4 level. Teirini will be joined with Andrew Mercier in the second half of the show, so I'll take it with you, Syd, here for the first half. First off, welcome to the show, and thanks for being on Greek Speak.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so the first question I always ask guests is simply, why did you pursue both Greek life, and why did you pursue Shippensburg University?
I mean, for me, Greek life specifically, my sister was in a sorority, and I always went up to Bloomsburg to visit her and stuff, and always saw, like, the fun events that they did and stuff. So I knew that it was something I was always interested in. And then for Shippensburg, I am obviously an early childhood education major, and I really wanted to find a school that was good for that. So that's why I came here, and then I decided to go through formal recruitment, and all the girls in KBG were very nice, and I feel like I connected well. And our philanthropy is Special Olympics, and being an education major, I feel like I resonated heavily with that. So
yeah, that's a nice tie-in there to Special Olympics you mentioned there. The education major too, so that's a great point. So you did this freshman year, so you were confident in your pursuit of Greek life from the get-go. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because last week we actually had Izzy Kemp from Delta Zeta on the show, and she said one of the most interesting things I think I've ever heard on the show, and that was that she wanted to pursue it in junior year of high school. So did it come that early for you, or a little bit later, or how'd that interest come about again?
My sister is 3 years older than me, so she was in college a few years of me being in high school still. And like I was saying, I feel like I always went up to visit her, and they would have like family day and stuff, and I feel like that stuff I always like really enjoyed. So I'd probably say the same thing as her, like probably junior year of high school. I definitely thought it was something for me, and obviously if I came to college and wanted to do it and it wasn't for me, I obviously would have rethought it. But once I went through recruitment, I definitely realized like it was something for me.
Okay, and then from there, yeah, Family Day, that's actually a point I want to circle back on, because did you guys do anything for Family Day last week? Because our chapter certainly did, but what did Kappa Beta Gamma do?
So we personally last week did not do anything for Family Day, but in last semester we do have a Family Day where everyone's families and like relatives get invited, and even some of our friends outside the chapter were allowed to invite, and we all kind of just hang out, bring food, and yeah, and it's a really fun day, and we all just spend it together.
All right, that's wonderful, and it's a good chance to get everybody together too, and especially on a weekend where it's a home football game. There's no homecoming, because homecoming for any fraternity or sorority, it's a tremendous lift. It's a tremendous, I don't want to say obligation, because it is a very enjoyable experience, but it can certainly be overwhelming, the preparation for it. But Family Day last week, we actually, for the first time, I'd say in a while, if not ever, as long as I've been in the chapter for sure, that we actually invited our parents and their families to come. So we had a nice setup in the yard, and we were able to just hang out and meet each other's parents and really grow those connections. So last Saturday was a really successful day for our chapter in that sense. But how whenever you started, you pursued Greek life, that was an interest. I mean, how encouraging were your parents in that pursuit?
My parents were actually very supportive of it, and they definitely liked the idea, because I had a roommate my freshman and sophomore year, and I loved her, like literally perfect fit for me, but I knew I also wanted to find like my people that I can constantly be around and constantly do things with, and just like, if I ever wanted to go to like the library or Starbucks or something, I could always like text our group chat real quick and always know that like I had someone to go with. But yeah, my parents were definitely really supportive, and they definitely did encourage me to do it, like I said, because of my sister, and they did see how it positively affected her. So
yeah, that's certainly a case, especially when you get family encouragement from a source that is, it's very different than, if your buddy's doing it or if your best friend's doing it. If your parents are saying, yes, you should pursue this thing because good things for your older sister, like you said, that really made a big difference for me whenever I was considering whether or not I should join too. So and that's where I also see the role. It's very important to show the positives, the good sides of Greek life that come with it beyond just what you hear on that surface level. But beyond that, so how Whenever you entered the sorority, how was your new member experience? How was that?
So for us, it was really good. We just, we slowly get eased into stuff. Obviously, we don't get thrown into stuff right away, but it's definitely, for me, it was a slight adjustment because I kind of, I've never been in, any clubs or anything. So my first semester, freshman year, I didn't really do anything. And then I went through formal recruitment my second semester. So for me, it definitely took a little bit to kind of get into it and whatnot, but I think once I found my people and found who I wanted to be around and learned all the events we do, our monthly study hours and our DI events, I feel like it was very easy to get in the groove of things, I'd say.
Yeah, that's great. And whenever you join into the sorority, at what point did you start taking a position? So you said you were secretary at first. So is secretary, is that an executive position in Kappa Beta Gamma, or what is that?
Yeah, it's it's a position on our exec board. When I was the position, it was also our DEI chair, and it still is. So I basically also I was a Panhandle delegate, so I went to those meetings every Sunday and kind of took notes, brought it back to our chapter, and also let our chapter know about the DEI events that we could attend, and always put them out there. And then I also took our minute notes for chapter, and then also was a person to send it out. So it was a big, for me, it was a very big, I'd say, organization position, just because I really had to keep all the events in order and stuff, and keep the chapter updated with that.
How was serving on Panhandle?
Well, I wasn't on the Panhandle board, but I was a delegate, so I did go to the Panhandle board with me, and then I would be a delegate, so then I would go and they would just tell us all the information that they figured out.
And I'm sure a lot of it, that's also, there's a lot of opportunities to learn about other chapters and also meet people from other chapters, gain exposure to what people on campus are doing, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. I would say that also helped me too, becoming president, because when I was secretary and I was a delegate, I got to see, because all the sororities get to share events that they did at those meetings, either the past week or the following week. So I was able to see oh, Alpha Phi did this or Delta Zeta did this. So especially when I came president, I kind of took that stuff and I took those ideas and activities that they did and kind of brought that to our chapter and said this has worked for other chapters, maybe we could give this a try, just so we could get more of a range of things and it wasn't we were doing the same things over and over again.
Right, it makes total sense. I mean, there's any organization out there does competitor analysis, and sometimes the best way to get an idea is just to rip it off somebody else.
Right.
So there's no fault in that, because a lot of times you can do it better, and you can, number two, do it your own way. So that experience, I'd say that's very similar to kind of the ethos of the show, and that is we want to mix and match with a lot other Greek organizations and get people in the studio that beyond just Kappa Sigma. So that's why we're so happy to have both you and Teirini here, because it's your number one and your number two in the organization sitting in the studio. So again, very thankful you guys are here for this. But how the interest of becoming an executive board officer, how that begin for you?
So for me, I never had a smaller position. I kind of went right into secretary, and then now I'm obviously president. But I think for me, I definitely wanted to kind of make change within our chapter and also be someone that people could constantly go to if they had questions or concerns, and just always be a shoulder to lean on for people. And I think with secretary, I definitely got that, because a lot of people came to me about a lot, which I liked, and then I would obviously talk about it with our exec board. And then I think that's also why I wanted to become president, because I liked that aspect of it so much. And then obviously now being president, I feel like everyone comes to me, and I personally enjoy loving to hear people's opinions on stuff, and even criticism a little bit, because I feel like everyone always has room to grow, and I love that people are comfortable enough to come to all five of us and share their opinions.
Yeah, a lot of times, the leadership I have on this campus, a lot of times, number one, I'm my own worst critic. So sometimes you eat yourself alive a lot of times on that one. But, number two, yeah, that is a big part of it, is taking criticism from others and figuring out what to do with it. And that's but that's something that, any presidential organization, anyone who serves as the president of an organization, regardless of what the capacity is, it is one of the most, I'd say, difficult things that you can do in your college experience, but also one of the most rewarding, because there's a lot of value in being I am the ultimate person here. If no one else, it's gonna be me. There's no other choice.
Right.
But I'd say this. So Luke Hillegass, he's not in the studio today, our chapter president. He always loves talking about the leadership structure, how the organization flows. So how do elections happen? How do appointments, if it's not an election, how do the appointments happen? How do people get on the executive board?
So for us, we obviously have chapters every Sunday, and then when the time of elections come around, we have a list of them, and we kind of just let people share their opinions with who they think would fit the position, and we also give a gist kind of what the position's about and what they kind of have to do, and we also let the previous position holder talk to kind of just explain everything that they've had to do, and then we basically just nominate each other, and like obviously if we feel like it's not for us or something along those lines, we can just like text and just be like, hey, like this isn't really for us. And then the next week we elect people, and we basically write speeches and say like why we think we would be a great fit for the position.
That's probably about, I'd say, almost identical as to how our chapter conducts it. What we do is we nominate. People are given some time to think about if it's a yes or a no, if they want to accept or decline that nomination. And then you can decline at any point prior to the moment you're going to give your speech. And then the next meeting, you give your speech. People ask questions of you, and then from there we evaluate and take votes as a collective chapter. Delta Zeta, they had explained us last week. They had a very unique system about how they had how they have their leadership structure. Basically, it's divided based on each class of sisters, where the sophomores get a say, the juniors get a say. It was a very interesting thing, and Luke had talked a lot about it, so I encourage everyone to take a listen to that episode on our Spotify account. But beyond that, though, I want to tie into you being president means you're overseeing a lot, and I'm sure vice president for Teirini, it's going to be kind of the same story. When you're president and you're overseeing these sisters, I mean, there's probably a lot of conflict resolution that goes on. There's just a lot of, I don't want to say conduct, but it's just a lot of, you have to manage people. You have to manage relationships, which is extremely difficult at times. And you said earlier that you want to be an elementary school below pre-K, correct?
Pre-K to 4.
Pre-K to 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So what age range is that? Like 4 years old?
It's like 5 to 9.
5. Like kindergarten or pre-K to 4th grade.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. That makes sense. So, running an organization with a bunch of college students, of course, how do you think it's going to translate to running a classroom with 5 to 10-year-olds?
I think a lot, honestly, like puts those two things together. Like I feel like one of the main things is like I'd say like organization, which even like secretary, like I feel like that helped me because obviously being a teacher you need to have all your stuff together, be organized, and I definitely think being president, I've had to stay very organized with our calendar and events and knowing where everyone is and who's there and who's not there. So I definitely think that. And then I also think the pressure, which I don't really think about a lot, but obviously being president, I feel like I've had a lot of pressure on me, and I don't always have people happy with me all the time, but I just remind myself I can't please everyone. I do try my best though. But I also know like I'm in a placement right now that's a 3rd grade that I go to twice a week. And even not being the actual teacher and just observing, I feel like pressure because kids are constantly coming up to me and asking me questions, which is very similar to being in my chapter right now because I definitely feel like people come to me first, which I do like, but it is a lot of pressure sometimes.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that in just a second, so we'll take a quick time out. Just a reminder, you're listening to Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM with hosts Luke, Rainey, Andrew Mercier, and special guests. So again, of course, we're with Syd Cummons, and later we'll have Andrew Mercier come in and talk with Teirini Doll and learn more about Kappa Beta Gamma. But right now, it's just myself and Syd on the mic. So continuing that thought, Syd, you just said about being in the classroom and you're talking to, you're in placement with 3rd graders. So what is that like? So you're observing, correct? Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not quite the same as like a student teaching position, but
Correct.
it's an observational.
Yes.
So I mean, how are the kids doing, I guess is the question.
So every semester we actually get a different grade. So I've been in kindergarten, 1st grade, 4th grade, and now I'm in 3rd grade. I'm a little bit better with like the 3rd, 4th grade areas, but I know like Teirini is a little bit better with like the kindergarten, 1st grade. So for me, I struggle a little bit more with the younger kids just because different behaviors and all that stuff, and they definitely learn different things. But I mean, the class that I'm in right now, it's in Fairfield, which is like 45 minutes away. I really do love it, and I love the kids, and I feel like I connect very well with them, and I love my teachers. So, yeah. I love it.
That's great. That's important. You have a good experience inside the classroom there, because obviously it's the foundation. Because this is true for any internship, any part-time gig that relates to your career. Is if you're going to go into this, you better be ready to do it for the next 40 years.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, all that to be said. I mean, how I guess beyond that point though, with the classroom and juggling that. You're doing that in mid-semester. You're doing that as the president of the organization. I imagine there's other commitments in your own personal and pre-professional life. How do you juggle all of it?
Oh, it's a lot sometimes. Personally, I don't have a job, so I definitely, during the semester, which I definitely think helps a lot. But I know a lot of people, I know Teirini, same as me, but she does have a job also at a preschool, so she's a little bit more busy than I am, but for me, I have my Tuesdays and Thursdays, evenings. I don't really have anything, so that's when I kind of prioritize, my schoolwork and stuff. All sorority events, I most of the time can go to unless I have, a late class, which this semester I do have late classes, but I try to just work around it, and I kind of plan my week, the weekend before, just so I know exactly what I have to do and get done what I have to do, so I'm getting everything done on time.
All right, that makes sense. I mean, that's good to have a structure like that, especially to go 2 full days a week, rather than some sort of part day arrangement.
Right.
That definitely cleans up the schedule quite a lot, I can imagine. So, I mean, how much? I talk a lot about education because we do have a lot of education majors. You mentioned it earlier, coming here for education. I imagine the strength of our program at this university factored into that a lot. I mean, I guess, how do you see your role as somebody who you're obviously a college student, you're younger, you're close enough in age to the students you're with. I mean, at the end of the day, 10 or 15 years, it isn't a whole lot of gap when you look at an entire lifespan of 80, 85 average. How do you see the relationships you get to build with children and the impact that you might have on their lives, even if you're just if you're observing? How does that impact? How do you assess that?
I feel that the kids, especially the kids that I'm with now, definitely look up to me as a teacher, even though I'm not fully there yet. I feel I always try to guide them in the right direction and always be there for them, even though I'm not their actual teacher yet. Mm-hmm. Next semester, I will be student teaching, so that is fully teaching, and that's a little bit different than just the observing. But
congratulations on that. That's wonderful.
Even though they're only 10, 15 years younger than me, I do still feel they look up to me and see me as a role model, and yeah. No,
that's great, and I think that's so important because this is something I don't know how much you would talk about this in your past education classes, but I do know that I forget where exactly this source is from, but I know I've heard in the past that a lot of times there's an extra need for student teaching and for teachers to kind of have a mentorship capacity over children. Because a lot of times if there's struggles at home, and the home is obviously one of the most vital support systems, but right next to that is indeed the school, because kids are spending 8 hours a day, 180 days a year in the school system. That whatever's going on at home, having it put together in a school capacity is so important to give children much needed support. So you guys have a tremendous lift. I mean, anybody who is going in education, I really respect it. Because that's I have to imagine that there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of extra stresses, but so I commend anybody who's doing the good work for that. And you're going into student teaching, you said, in the spring semester. So is this at Fairfield still, or is it somewhere else? Where is it?
So I actually would like it to be at Fairfield, but we can't always request. So hopefully for me, it is there. But yeah, I really like that class and the grade, but it is a little distance away. But I'll be happy anywhere I go, to be honest.
45 minutes, it's not. Oh, for sure. 45 minutes isn't the worst. I've heard worse commutes.
Oh, yeah.
So especially you're not driving. Fairfield's in a rural enough area.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going straight into the heart of a city either.
Yeah.
So, that's great to hear. And I think you go into the spring semester, and this is kind of a transition into, obviously you're vacating the spot. Teirini, as vice president, I think she's also a senior. Is that correct? Yes. So number 1 and number 2 are both going out the door at the same time. Assessing the future of Kappa Beta Gamma is so important for you guys, and it starts now, even though it's only October 3rd. Whenever you get into an executive position, as Luke Hillegass, our president, always says, You get into an executive position, the first thing you're thinking about is who's the person who's going to take the position from you when you're out the door. So how do you assess that? Like, what qualities are you looking for out of your sisters to step up and take the charge?
So for us, like, I feel like me and Teirini and even our e-board talk a lot now about, like, who has those, I don't really know the word, but, like, not... like, who shows us that they do have those responsibilities. There's a few girls that are juniors now that have definitely showed us that, and some people have even, like, expressed interest in a lot and have, like, kind of came to us and said that they were interested, and has definitely shown each and every single day that, like, they do want it. So, obviously, it's something that we do think about all the time, but since we're graduating, we can only have so much say and can only do so much about it. But I definitely think that... once we all talk and speeches are given and we all figure it out, I definitely know that our chapter is going to be in great hands. So,
and I want to go from that to the next point. Of course, Andrew is our Grand Master of Ceremonies, which ultimately means he oversees recruitment and the new member process. And so you're talking about at the big level with the executive positions, but I want to talk about at the foundational level, the nuts and bolts of recruiting people. We obviously have our standards for what we look for whenever we're recruiting a new member. What are your standards for new member recruitment? Like, what are you looking for out of the girls who are interested in joining your chapter?
So we definitely look at girls that show a lot of interest in us, too, because there's been girls that have gone through recruitment in the past where, like, we can just tell that they're not fully vibing with us or they just aren't really fully into it. So we definitely look for someone that's giving us the energy that we are giving them, if that makes sense. We also look for girls that maybe, like, want a leadership position in the future or, like, want to be around other girls and make new friends and want to make a difference and do stuff for our philanthropy. So we just really look for people that will put in, like, the time and the effort to be here and support this sorority with us.
Right, that's true. And I know that's something we've really done a very solid job, I think, as far as improving, like, the way we're kind of assessing people who are interested in joining. And a lot of it is, well, what do you want beyond just, coming in here to be a brother?
Right.
How are you gonna help us? And I always say, like, there's a lot of questions you ask, and I think a lot of responses for, like, well, why are you going to join? It's grouped into three categories, and sometimes people are all three, sometimes people are just one. A lot of it, sometimes it's people who join in. This is kind of more of my reason. Like, I'm joining because I need help. Like, I see this as a support system that's going to be, like, very, like, that I'm in desperate need of. I'm joining this because I think I can, do a lot of good work here in this chapter. I think those are the good reasons. I never really like the answer just simply build connections, period. Like, there's something that's more, I can build connections with anybody on earth. I can build a connection with a ham sandwich. But at the end of the day, What about that connection is special? And that's where Greek life is so much more special than that. So there's depth in that answer. Like, I need critical thought on that whenever I hear people speak on it. And that's great for you to say that because, even if build connections is a part of your answer, there's so much more to it. And that's, again, like our recruitment process. I think we've assessed that. And it's just on that point, how did your recruitment go this semester? New member process, how is that going at this point? We're in October, I guess.
So, yeah, for us, since we're, like, Panhell, we can only get a certain amount of girls each semester, which is every sorority on this campus. So we were only able to get one girl this semester, and we did. So, yeah. Okay,
well, that's still one person who's in your organization, and I know the Panhell rules are kind of finicky. I mean, we're not subjected to that under IFC, which is, in my opinion, for the better, in my personal perspective on that. Because I think every semester has ebbs and flows, but, like, you have one, whereas you could have, really, if you saw it, like, oh, there's 6 girls who could have been interested, and you're only able to get one. But nonetheless, I mean, for that one new member, I'm sure it's a challenge to make it still a memorable experience for her and make it worthwhile. But nonetheless, it's still, she's ultimately going to join your organization, hopefully, at the end of the semester, and hopefully all goes well with that process for her and for your organization. So... No, best of luck on that. So I'd say even if it's just one, it's still somebody that you invest in as a chapter in the sense of this is somebody who wants to join us. So we are nearing the half-hour mark, so I think, Syd, we're going to transition out and let Andrew and Teirini take over. We'll be back at the tail end of the show because Syd and Teirini, as you guys were briefed on to start the show, you will be asking us questions at the end. So we'll make room for Andrew and Teirini to come in here. Again, you're listening to Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM from Shippensburg University in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. We'll be back in just a second to let Andrew and Teirini take the microphones.
Well, I think that was a very good session from Syd, so thank you, Syd, for that. Teirini, hello. How are you doing? Good. So, obviously, I've been excited about this episode for a little bit. You know, we've been talking about it for a few days. Obviously, I got a couple things in my notes. First thing that kind of stands out to me is, so you are a senior, but you joined in the spring of 2024. What was the reasoning behind that? Have you always went to SHIP, or were you, what was the reason on, being delayed joining to Greek life?
Yeah, so I've always been at SHIP. I decided to join my second semester sophomore year because I had roommates, and we're still roommates now, and we've always been very close. But I wanted to kind of branch out from those friendships and find new friendships like Syd was talking about.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that my second semester freshman year was the right time for me because I was still adjusting from college. But I decided that I would give Greek life a try, and I'm very glad that I did.
Yeah, I was definitely one of those people that was kind of on the fence when I first came to college. I tell people all the time that in high school, a lot of people were like, oh, you're going to go on to college and you're going to join a fraternity. And I was like, I don't know. And then I guess there was a weird period where I was like, maybe I want to prove them wrong. Maybe I'm just not going to do it. And then ultimately I ended up here and, got connected with Kappa Sigma. Ended up rushing my second semester, so the same semester as Syd. We really are the unks of the organizations now, which is really weird to say because, I feel like it was a short time ago that, we just got here on this campus. But so obviously you joined in spring of 2024. So kind of give me a breakdown of like your time so far. So you were a new member in the spring of 24, and then I'm assuming that you took a position in November of fall 2024, correct?
Yeah, so I actually ran for president and Syd won, but I knew that I was interested in a leadership position because I wanted to get the full experience of being in a sorority. So I ran for the fundraising chair and got that, and then I ended up becoming the vice president as well. And it is really awesome that Syd and I work so well together, and we make a lot of things happen for our chapter.
Well, I think that's exactly how things are supposed to be, friendly competition. Our two top guys, our president, Luke Hillegass, and our vice president, Alex Staub, actually ran against each other for president. It often makes, you make each other better in a sense because then you learn how to work together. You really work on, they have their pros and they have their cons. And a lot of the times your pros are their cons and their cons are your, vice versa. You guys really gel well together, and I see that in my entire e-board of Luke, Alex, myself, Drew, and Owen. I think we all just are always willing to help each other, always willing to slide in and maybe help in areas that we may not be the most comfortable in, but we still want to help out and make sure that everyone's doing okay. But I'm kind of confused on how you're holding the fundraising chair and vice president. So the way of how our organization is we have our 5 exec members being president, vice president membership development, which is my position, secretary, and treasurer. Under the president, there is one chair. It is the IFC delegate chair. So they're the ones that are really communicating with the president and the rest of the chapter on, what's going on at IFC meetings. But that's the only chair that the president has because technically the chairs of the president are the 4 exec members underneath of him. And then, falling down the train, going down the tracks a little bit, you have, the vice president, and then he has chairs. And then my position, we have chairs. And then, going down the line. So how does that work in terms of KBG?
So for us, we have our 5 exec positions too. We have president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and risk management. And then we also have a bunch of chair positions. So we have an academic chair, we have a fundraising chair, which I am myself. We have a PR chair, a sisterhood chair, a bunch of different chairs, but I actually had fundraising chair first, and I was not expecting to be on e-board, and nominations were over, but some things happened, and our vice president had to step down, so I knew that I would really like to step up and try to lead this chapter the best I could.
Yeah, it seems like you were the right girl for the job. Girl, that sounds weird. Right woman for the job. I don't know. But obviously you said that you've enjoyed your time, as vice president and as fundraising chair, but I do know that elections are coming in November. I don't know what day you guys have for it. I mean, I know that the majority of Greek life does November elections, and then like for the rest of the semester, the old regime will help the new regime until, the spring, and then they're kind of on their own. We're different though. Our elections are actually at the end of each school year. So ours is usually this past year we actually changed it, 2024. Yeah, 2024 we changed it. So we moved our elections to March, and then we had it where you were like an elect to your position. So our EC was, say, instead of 5, it was 8 people, because you had the ex regime / the current regime, and then you had the elects for about a month. They were kind of just like a learning process of like you would meet with your person. So that it was like we wanted to really improve our transition process, because there were so many times where we had, say 4 guys go out, and then there's 4 new guys, and we kind of wanted to get rid of that, that learning curve a little bit, and try to do as much as we can to get people up to speed. I mean, I can definitely say I needed the learning, and I think I even took the learn. I still needed to learn, probably all the way through my first term. I'm actually in my second term, and I think it was like over the summer I was like it was kind of like an epiphany, and I was like, well, I got this now, like I got it. But it's kind of shifting gears. Well, it's kind of related. What would you say is the best thing, that you've taken from the 2 positions that you've held, like? What's been your favorite memory through those through those positions?
Yeah, so one of the main things that I've taken from this experience is definitely leadership. Since I am going to be a teacher, I do have to lead a classroom of little tiny children, and it's hard sometimes to get them to listen. And not saying that our chapter is hard to listen, but it's hard to communicate with people that are your own age and maybe even older than you and be in charge of them. So definitely leadership is something I've taken from this. And another thing is teamwork. I already said that Syd and I worked very well together, but the rest of our e-board, even though it took us a little bit to gel together, we work really well together. And I know that at the end of the day, if any situation comes up, we're very quick to figure it out. So that's definitely something I've taken from it as well.
Yeah, I mean, and the one thing I've learned is it's, around the clock job, at least for our exec position, exec board. Is as annoying as it is sometimes, my phone is always on. If one of my guys calls me, I will pick up the phone, and I'll be there. And I don't care if I have to sit into a meeting until 2 a.m. I'm big on resolutions. I want to resolve something, and I usually like to resolve things the day of. Like if there's an issue, I'd rather get it over with that day, so I don't go to sleep thinking about it or something like that. That's just a me thing. But you did mention, wanting to be a teacher. What grade levels do you, plan to go into?
So this is going to sound super weird, but I'm hoping for kindergarten or 3rd grade. I know it's a big age adjustment, but for me, I do like the younger ones, and I do like the maturity of 3rd grade, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to have a little fun with this one, but kindergarten, my parents definitely hated me. I mean, you have the green, the yellow, and the red, and there's multiple times where I got put on red, and I don't understand, because that was like the one year that I was like a bad kid, and then ever since then I was, never broke rules or anything. But if I were you, I would go with 3rd grade, because, as you said, like the maturity starting to, develop. They're supposed to, they're starting to become more independent in a sense. Is there a certain I mean, obviously, I guess elementary ed, you're kind of teaching everything, but is there a certain subject that you are really passionate in?
I've always been very good at writing, so that is one subject that I definitely want to hone in on when I am in my classroom. And like you said before about the clip charts, I personally think that clip charts are a bunch of baloney, because we should start doing away with them, because you can take any disciplinary behavior from a child and make it a positive and help them positively move through school.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've seen a lot with just life over the last few years, and kind of just how organizations run is leaning towards positive reinforcement, rather than really punishing, really trying to find positive ways to punish someone. I mean, I think punish is just a negative word that kind of just is slowly easing its way out, and I think that's a good thing, because when you're punishing people, it turns people to, hold grudges or be bitter and stuff like that, where it's like, let me coach you through this. Let me show you, where you could do better. And at the end of the day, you are more than likely going to do better. But obviously, we've talked about that, and I think that your leadership skills will prepare you for that because, it allows you to be patient in a sense. And I know that third graders or kindergartners are a lot different than, 18 to 22-year-olds, but it's the same concept in a sense of like, you have to be patient. Like, not everyone's going to be happy with your decisions, but, you have to be confident in what you're saying. And especially as a teacher, you are you're preparing the next people, the next generation of, people in this world. So you have to be confident in what you're saying. And, I can definitely get that vibe from you that you are confident in a sense. But obviously we've talked about, your experience and stuff like that. If you had to pick one of your best memories in KBG, what would it be?
One of my best memories in KBG would definitely be Big Little, getting to become a part of my fam tree. Our fam tree is very close. My G Big, she graduated, but we still talk every day. My GG Big, she also graduated, but we still keep in contact. And my Big and my Little were very close. So I think that is the best experience I've taken from this.
Yeah, that's a big, really good experience for us in our chapter, and that's something that, we really love to showcase to the public. I mean, it's a post that we do every year, showcasing, how the family lines have expanded, and that's, an effort that we've been actually working on, myself and an alumni have been trying to, bridge the gap between, like, say the 2010s, like the early 2010s, and then now, like, really trying to find out what line people were in. Because I know it's really exciting when we have our Founders Day in April when, people come back with their shirts and their colors and, you get to talk about stories like that. But, that's the whole point of it, is a sense of, a mentor. And, that's something that I had in high school. It was called an Oaks and Seedlings program. So it was pretty much identical. So, like, when you were a freshman, you would get an Oak who was a senior, and then you would get a sixth grader who would be your seedling. And that was like your family line. And, you'd be able to exchange numbers and stuff like that. And then you were always kind of just that person for them. And it was something I've always been super appreciative of. My Oak, Anthony, he's actually went on to serve, I believe, in the Army. So, I mean, he's done a lot of great things for the school and also for the country. But, I really like it in a sense because my Big in the fraternity, Jake, we're different in a way, but we're also very similar. But, like, any time that I need something, I can call Jake, and, Jake's there. And, I mean, I hope that you have the same experience with your Bigs, or your Big, your G Big, and your Little.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
What else would you say are some lessons, life lessons that you've taken from the organization that, you will really prepare you for your future in the professional world?
Yeah, so one of the main ones is you can't please everyone, and you have to make decisions based on what's right, not trying to please one side or the other. So it's definitely a good experience to be in this position and be a teacher one day, because I do eventually want to be a principal, so that is the leader of a school. But yeah, that's one of the main ones for me.
So what exactly is the process in becoming a principal? Is that something that requires more schooling? Like, I'm not necessarily too familiar with that.
Yeah, so it's about 2 to 3 years in a master's program, and then you're certified K through 12 to be a principal, even though my degree for teaching is only pre-K 4. So I definitely want to do that later down the road when I'm getting closer to retirement, but I do want to teach for a while.
So another question that I have, and, I haven't asked this in a while. It used to be a weekly question, and then I kind of strayed away from it, but I think it's a good question is, let's picture let's say it's a high school senior or a freshman here on campus, first semester. Let's say that this person is skeptical about Greek life. What are some things that you would say to that person here today that, leans them towards, why they should go Greek in a sense? you know, because obviously you were on the fence, myself was on, you know, there's probably every person on this campus was on the fence at one point. So, like, what would you say are some things that you would tell this person if they were on the fence?
My biggest thing is step outside your comfort zone. I used to be very shy and reserved, but after joining Greek life, I'm very outgoing. I always can talk about things with my friends and my sisters in my sorority. So it's definitely step outside the box. You will meet friends that you'll have for life, and it is a great experience to get to volunteer within your community and raise money for your philanthropy, like the Special Olympics. So
Awesome. Last question I have for you is there anything else that you're involved in here on campus, you know, outside of Greek life? Because that's one thing that, you know, that I always love to talk about is, you know, people that are, you know, presidents of clubs or something like that, you know, showing that they are really able to balance Greek life and something else. Actually, talking about balance, you said you have a job.
yeah.
You know, how do you balance that, you know, being a full-time student, working however many hours you do, and then being the vice president of your organization?
Yeah, so it definitely is a lot, and it's something that I had to learn how to grow about. But on Mondays, I have class all day, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays, I do go to my job. I'm a daycare teacher, so I work from 12:30 to 5:30 with 4 and 5-year-olds. So once their main teacher leaves, I'm basically the head teacher, which is really nice to get that experience. And then also on Fridays, I go and do my observation in the field. So I'm in a 3rd grade placement this semester, but definitely I have a calendar that has all of my events and everything I need to do lined up. And you learn balance and you learn how to overcome all of those obstacles as you go through.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great piece of advice, but as we are hitting towards the last section of our show, we're going to shift gears a little bit. And, you know, you guys are going to be the ones that ask us questions. So, you know, ask away. I see Luke's desperately ready to answer a question.
So I actually do have a question for either of you that want to answer. What is the main thing you're hoping to get from this Greek life experience?
Main thing I'm looking to get is some sort of connection to the university once I leave here, because, you know, I have thought a lot about that, especially as the senior year started, is that a lot of things we get to do are very limited. For example, this radio show is going to end by the time I graduate, or hopefully someone takes it over, but it's not going to be me behind the microphone. So that's it's a sobering thing, because this is something I've enjoyed, and I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss all the other things I'm involved with on this campus. But being an alumni of a Greek organization has a unique, there's a unique purpose behind it. There's a unique tie to what goes on at the university, and seeing this chapter that we're a part of continue to grow and develop and give our posterity some sort of, you know, the same sort of benefits that we've been able to receive is something that I think is really important. So I know Andrew is probably going to have a good answer to that question as well. So Andrew should, if you have any thoughts on that to add, but that's a great question, Teirini, and I appreciate hearing from you. Again, of course, just a reminder, folks, you are listening to Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM from Shippensburg University. And I'll let Andrew take it over from here for that question.
Thank you, Teirini. I think that's a great question. And, you know, I feel like I'm kind of stumped right here, but I think there's a lot of things I could say. You know, the one thing is I hope that I can take the life lessons that I've learned from the organization, whether it's just being a general member or being in part of leadership. But, you know, I think the main thing is, you know, just being remembered for someone that gave it his all, you know, at all times. You know, as I said, there's been the amount of sleepless nights that, you know, I've been in our chapter room for 6 hours, or the amount of times that I'm doing some Kappa Sigma document while I'm in class. Whoops, sorry. But, you know, like the amount of times that I put into this place. But, you know, just, you know, going away from Greek life in a sense, just, you know, I hope to give off the vibe that, you know, I was someone that, you know, cared about each and every person here, and, you know, gave it my all. But as I said, really just trying to take the experiences that I've learned and, you know, really shape them into my career, because ultimately college is, you know, usually it's about 4 years, and, you know, here I am getting close to the end. But as I said, I just want to take everything that I've learned.
I do have a question as well. It's a little bit more generic, I'd say, but I feel like Kappa Sig always does very unique events and has a lot of ideas for different events to do. So what is your guys' favorite thing you guys have done while being in the chapter?
Man, that's tough. That's a tough question because I mean, there's definitely been some great events that we've done. I'd honestly say my favorite event that we've done, and it's rumored to be coming back, a little spoiler, is back in 2023, we partnered with the Theta Chi fraternity here on campus, and we held a military appreciation football game here at SHIP. And, that was such a really cool event because we made shirts and everything like that for the event. But we worked the ticket booths. I believe that we paid for the admissions of all veterans to come into the stadium. And we ended up having a tailgate and, just inviting all veterans to come out. But, that was just a lot of fun because, I got to see a lot of, smiles and a lot of thank yous. But, I immediately turned around and was like, no, thank you. This is some simple act that we're doing. Thank you for all that you've done for us. So, yeah, that's probably been my favorite, and I'm really excited for it to possibly be coming back. I want to say November 12th.
Yeah, so just to remind me, Syd, of the exact question, I know you talked about the unique events we do. What was that again?
I basically just asked what your favorite event that you guys have done since you've been in the chapter.
I mean, that's an easy one for me, I'd say, as I go back to our fun run about 4 weeks ago. So, of course, we had Drew Williams, our scribe, on here, and he talked all about everything it took to put the fun run together on the evening before the fun run happened, that next day on September 6th. So that was really a fantastic event, just very well put together, organized. Drew had an answer for every single question I had as far as how the event was going to work, and I very much, it wasn't because I doubted Drew, it's just because a lot of times event planning it can go wrong very, very quickly, and I think Drew did an outstanding job, and that's something that we're hoping to replicate, and I know other chapters on this campus are looking to replicate something similar to and all of that was a philanthropic effort. So $3,000 went to the Community Free Clinic in Washington County, Maryland. But I'd also say beyond that, though, I think a lot of our brotherhood events are very unique. For example, we have a weekend retreat every spring where we have, well, not every spring, but at least in the past several springs where we had some brothers who are now both alums who actually have a very nice cabin in a remote area where us brothers were able to go there, enjoy ourselves for a great evening there. On a Saturday night, so it's really a wonderful thing that they're able to put together for us. So I'd say those types of events are really good, but the size of our brotherhood also enables us to do so much more and gain more resources and just to be able to do more creative things. I think our brotherhood committee has really done a phenomenal job as well. So great work by those guys all around. Yay. But thank you so much, Syd. I don't know if you have any more questions, any final parting thoughts here.
No, that was it. But thank you for having us. It was very fun.
Of course, we were very happy to, and at least I think this is the first time we've ever had Kappa, Beta, Gamma in this room. So thank you for representing your sorority and yourselves very, very well on the show. So, and thank you to everybody at home for listening to us here. Again, this is Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM from Shippensburg University. We'll be back next week as always, but until then, we'll see all of you later.